Welcome to the channel and welcome to the show. On today's episode, I want to take you back in time, back to the Second World War. The reason for this is certain pagan symbols, like say the othala rune or the valknut. When people see those, there's a small percentage of the population who still to this day think that these symbols are associated with the far right. Now that's why I want to go back in time, because it all started in the Second World War, where the Nazi Party utilized, or should I say misused, a lot of pagan symbols. And these things kind of became fused together in a lot of people's minds. That the magic, that there was a certain magic that the Nazis sought and that the Nazis used. Even today, when you just walk around the street and you ask the average person in Holland or in Europe what happened during the Second World War, these regular people who don't believe in magic or the occult will tell you Hitler and his party cast a spell over Germany. So there's this connection between magical things, pagan things, and far-right things. And those things are still perpetrated in movies, by the way. Indiana Jones is always fighting some Nazi who's looking for some sacred artifact so he can conquer the world. Even in Captain America, the Avengers, the Red Skull was still a Nazi who's looking for an ancient artifact so he can conquer the world. So this story is told again and again. So I want to look at the Nazis, but more specifically I want to look at the SS, the Waffen-SS, and their leader, Himmler. How far did they go with integrating pagan stuff into their ideology? Because it's not only that they used pagan symbols, well, they used pagan symbols and they used them to make these people, the German people, who are very rational and very calm people, they unlocked something wild in them, and then they misdirected that wildness in the direction that they saw fit. But it's not only that they used those symbols, they actually took some paganism and they used it in their ceremonies. Because Himmler, the head of the SS, he wanted all officers, if they married, he didn't want them to marry in front of a church. He did a pagan wedding ceremony for them. And when their children were being born, the children of SS officers, it was recommended that they would not be baptized in the church. Yet they had a naming ceremony, just like in pagan days. Now, how pagan were these naming ceremonies? Well, Himmler combined certain part of the National Socialist Party. So he read from Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, and he also made some references to paganism, and he blended basically paganism together with his own ideology. He never mentioned any pagan gods. Well, that's not entirely true. He mentioned one. He mentioned the ancient one. He called him Varalda, which is a beautiful sounding name. But from what I've learned is that Varalda is a made-up god, specifically for the National Socialist Party in Germany. Within the SS, there was a lot of pressure to renounce Christianity and to embrace something else. So now you're thinking, oh, so at least the SS in part were pagan. Well, it's a bit different, because they wanted you to renounce the church and wanted you to register as what they called Gottgläubig, a God believer. But they never mentioned what God. Now this is specifically made vague. It's specifically made vague because I believe they knew that Germany wasn't ready for a new pagan religion. They wasn't ready for a new pagan god. That's also confirmed by the fact that Himmler was very strict when it came to pictures of the naming ceremonies and the wedding ceremonies. He didn't want them to get out into the news, into the paper. Because he was afraid that the German people might ridicule them. So that's always good to remember, that the people in power don't want to be ridiculed. That's one of the reasons why at the moment in England I believe that if you share the wrong meme, you're literally going to jail. Because there's power in ridicule. If you're afraid or if you're angry about politicians, the people in power, they like that. If you laugh at them, they don't like that. But the point that he did this is that he knew that he couldn't get the German people on board on this pagan religion. That's why they try to call themselves Gottgläubig, because it's a gray area, because you believe in God. So you go like, that's probably the Christian God, right? They don't outward say, I pray to Aralda or I pray to Wodan. There was none of that. And one of the reasons why they didn't do it like that is they probably couldn't get all the people in the army and the SS to go along with it. So how many people did register as Gottgläubig? There are actually some statistics on that. Within the leadership of the SS, there was about 60 to 80% who registered to Gottgläubig. On the general army, it was about 20%. So, to ask the question, were the Nazis pagan? No. Did they use the runes? They misused the runes. Did they use pagan symbols? Yes, they misused pagan symbols. Like I said, they used those symbols to somehow reach the subconscious mind of the average German. To reach that and bring out the power which then they could direct. I agree with most people on the street here in Holland who believe that the Nazi party cast a spell on Germany. But there was no praying to Wodan. There were no pagan ceremonies, and most of the people who converted said they were Gottgläubig. Didn't even know what god they were gläubig in. But that connection that there is between Nazis, paganism, occult, this trifecta, there's some truth to that. Because the head of the SS, Heinrich Himmler, actually believed in the power of the hammer of Thor. Now, when I say I believe in the power of the hammer of Thor, I believe that the hammer of Thor can be seen as a symbol. And we can talk about what that symbol means. We can have fun doing that. But not Heinrich Himmler. He believed that the hammer was actually a real physical object and a weapon of our ancestors. And he spent a lot of money funding expeditions all around the globe searching for evidence of this mythological hammer. This actually culminated in around, I think, November 1944, which is right around the end of the war, where Himmler actually gave the order to his men and his scientists to start constructing an actual physical Thor's hammer. He wanted an electric device which can disable all other electric devices, which he called Thor's hammer. So there was a big connection between paganism, the occult, and the Nazis. But were they pagan? No. They were just smart Germans who used the magic of the runes and paganism to do terrible things. I think they did a lot of terrible things, but one of the things that I find terrible is they probably put paganism back 2-3 generations, because now everybody still associates certain symbols with the far right. The swastika, for instance, is known all around the world as a beautiful symbol. It's the symbol of Thor's hammer going round and round. But it's very hard to use that symbol without being labeled far right. But I believe in time that will heal. The question automatically arises is, can we fix this? And I don't think we can. I think the runes were here before us, and they will be here after us. And if we look back in 200 years, this will only be a tiny stain. Just some cramps. Just the first cramps of the European continent giving birth to paganism. So do we need to actively renounce racism? Well, it doesn't mind to say it once or twice, just don't say it over and over, because I always think that's kind of suspicious. It's kind of like the Democratic Republic of Korea. You know, they emphasize democratic so much that you know it's not democratic. It's often with people who do everything to emphasize that, oh, I'm not racist. You know, I find that suspicious. So it's okay to use the symbols, just don't be a dick. And Nazis misused the runes. Actually, that's one of the reasons I believe they lost the war. Because these runes that are alive and live forever, you can misuse them, but you will pay a hefty price. So don't be stupid like that, okay? I'll see you all in a week or two. Ga met de goden.